black thing go from left to right, and I thought, I'm going to die out here. No one's ever going to know. I couldn't believe what my eyeballs were showing me. I'll never forget how evil the eyes were. It was horrible. I mean, I've never seen nothing that evil.
It ran towards me at a rate that I can't even explain. Turned and stared at me, and this look of, I just want to kill you. I want to say it was human, but it wasn't.
He was yelling at me to grab a gun. I was like, for what? He said, just grab a gun. And there's footprints all the way to the door of my house. It had went inside my garage, all the way to the door.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
You're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Check us out online at sasquatchchronicles.com. If you've had an encounter, email me. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you tonight. Really appreciate you guys being here on a Sunday night. Got a great lineup. Going to be talking to Jay. And Jay had an encounter in East Texas. And it's probably one of the more fascinating encounters I've ever heard. You'll definitely want to stay tuned for that. Then I'll be talking to Frances. And Frances actually had 2 encounters that happened to her out there in California, in that general area. So she'll be sharing that tonight. Then I'll also be welcoming Tony Merkel from the Confessionals. He'll be giving us his MyBookie picks this week, so it should be a lot of fun. And I want to thank MyBookie for supporting the show, supporting what I do. I hope people enjoyed all the extra shows last week. You can definitely thank MyBookie for that. And I'll include a link for MyBookie underneath this episode. So let's go show them some love. And I really appreciate you guys being here tonight. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, please check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member, get additional shows. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Jay to the show. Jay, thanks for coming on.
Hey, how's it going, Wes?
It's going good, man. Thanks so much for being here. And now you had a pretty scary encounter, and it happened out there in East Texas. Is that correct?
Yeah, it happened out by Nacadoches, and it's South Nacadoches down by Palestine.
Okay. Well, if you would,
It's a pretty remote area.
Yeah. If you would you kind of start from the beginning? Tell us what you're out doing, and just walk us into what happened.
Okay, well, this happened in 1998. It was right after Thanksgiving. Me and my father, we used to go to public hunt land. It was type 2 grounds in Texas, and it's even though it is a public hunt land, they used to use it for logging, and it's a really remote area. It was 1998. I was 15 years old, and my mom and my brother used to go with us, but this weekend, I don't remember exactly why they didn't go, but this weekend specifically, it was just me and my father that went. And we had been out there for a couple of years before this, so I knew the area decently well. So we left on a Thursday to go hunt, and we were going to hunt Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We left kind of in the afternoon, so we got there pretty late. We live in the city, so it's about 4 or 5 hour drive for us. We get there Thursday evening, probably about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we used to pull a Volkswagen dune buggy out to the spot. And we'd use a dune buggy basically like how people use four-wheelers, and we'd take the dune buggy from our camp and drive all the way back off in the areas that we'd hunt to carry our stands and supplies and stuff like that. We'd been hunting here whenever the incident happened. We'd already been hunting at this location for the 2 years before that, so this is our 3rd year. And shortly after this happened, my dad ended up renting a hunt and lease, so we only went to that property, or he only went to that property like 1 or 2 more years after that. But so we get there on Thursday, and we pull in kind of late. Everything is going fine, like on Friday. And he would go hunt in the morning time. He would get up early. And like I said, I was 15, so I didn't get up like at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. So he would go out by himself in the morning time. And he would come back into camp and he would have lunch. And we would go out together at lunchtime and we would have a afternoon hunt, and then we'd come back and then we'd go back out one more time before the sun would set. So everything was fine on Friday. And then Saturday, our last day that we were going to be there, we went out for the afternoon hunt. Everything was good. And the spot that I used to hunt at, it was kind of like my spot because my dad would hunt in a spot that he liked. And he hunted about 5 miles away from where I hunted at. So the spot that I hunted at, I knew the area really well. I would go back there and I would scout it and I'd walk around and, you know, I kind of just felt like it was my spot. And I really liked it. It was real peaceful, real nice. I never really wanted to shoot an animal while I was out there, but I would use my tree climber and climb up and I would, you know, observe deer and not a whole lot of deer. I only saw like probably 2 or 3 deer the whole time I was there, a couple of years, but I would see a lot of like coyotes and possums, and it was just real nice to be out there.
Yeah, and I would imagine too, bonding time with your dad and everything else. Yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah,
man.
He loved to hunt. He was a real outdoorsman. He was also in Vietnam, so he had a lot of like the tracking skills from being in Vietnam. He was in the Battle of Da Nang on the river, so he'd been through some pretty hairy stuff in his lifetime. So hunting, he was like in this natural element hunting, and I enjoyed it being out there. And I used to take the dune buggy and go off-roading out there. That was why I like to go, to be honest. I would take the dune buggy and I'd go out playing in the mud, and I would just drive this huge loop that was probably 20, maybe 30 miles, just massive loop around the woods and come back and pick him up. Well, on Saturday, whenever the incident happened, we went out for our evening hunt, and he told me that he didn't want me to take the dune buggy because I got the dune buggy real muddy, and I could tell he was kind of upset that I'd been out playing, so he wanted me to actually hunt. So he dropped me off at my location, and he took the dune buggy. So I get back there, and I climb up in the tree. I had a tree climber that would hook to my backpack, and I climbed the tree, and I'm up there for a while. As it starts to get dark in Texas, like the sun will set behind the trees, but it'll still be light visible for about 15, 20 minutes before it's actually dark. So I knew kind of how much time that I had to get down off the tree and get back to the road. And my dad was a very, very punctual person. Like if he said he'd be there right when the sun would set, I knew that he would be there right at that time, you know? So I get down off this tree. The sun's starting to go down. I know how much time I have. I get all my stuff packed to walk back to the road. I'm probably about 200 yards off the road. And this area was so remote that there would still be the tracks from our buggy from the year before. So people didn't go back to this spot, that specifically where we would hunt at. And like I said, this was my area, and I kind of knew this big area pretty well because it was a spot that I like to go to. And as I'm walking back to the main road, I hear a really loud knock. But it wasn't a knock. It was like a thud, like a huge, heavy, strong thud. And it was really close to me. It was, I would guess it was probably, I don't know, within the 100 yards. And these woods are real thick, but you have visibility. You can see through the woods pretty well, but the woods are real thick. And I'm instantly scanning the area, looking for what the source was that made the noise. And it kind of froze me in my tracks because the sound of it was really heavy, and I could tell that it was something strong that had did it. And I knew that the animals in the area, that there's no bears in this area. There's no real big game like mountain lions or bears. So it really shocked me and scared me. I sat there for a few minutes, probably about 2 to 3 minutes, kind of froze looking around, and I decided to proceed back to the road. And I'm looking over my shoulder and all around me. As soon as I get to the road, like instantly, as soon as I step out of the clearing to the road, this thing screamed. And it screamed so loud and so strong, and the volume of the scream was so deep that you could tell this thing was humongous. Even without actually seeing it, you could tell that whatever had screamed this was massive, because the sheer volume going through the woods was just unbelievable. it's hard to even describe unless you've heard it or you had an encounter.
Yeah.
And it was a real deep scream, and it would be deep for a while, and the tone would change to a blood curdling scream, high pitched scream at the end of it, real long, just deep. Like I said, hard to describe, but you know that whatever is making this noise, and you're just terrified. Instantly, I'm just froze in fear. And the sound of this thing screaming at me, it screamed over and over and over for the next few minutes, just back to back with screaming. I was so terrified with fear that next thing I know, I'm sitting on the road, and I used to hunt with the German Mauser, a 7mm deer rifle, and I had dropped the deer rifle on the ground, and I'm sitting on my butt with my arms wrapped around my legs, in front of my legs, just terrified. And I know whatever this thing is, I can tell by the sound of this thing screaming at me through the woods, I can tell it's directed at me. Does it make any sense? Like, it's not screaming away. I can tell that the scream is coming towards me. You know what I mean, Wes? Like when someone screams, like in the woods, you hear a noise, you can kind of tell directionally how the scream's coming through the woods.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you if you felt like it was screaming in your general direction. It's always different when you hear a scream, and you're like, okay, that could have been a bobcat, that could have been this, it could have been that. But when something's screaming at you, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, you can tell a directional sound through the woods. I mean, I've been in the woods enough to know, and I've heard noises come from the camp, and I've heard my dad scream at me from the camp. You know what I mean? Like you can tell a directional scream when something is screaming at you. Like at this point now, you realize that this thing knows I'm here. It's screaming at me. You know, and that's terrifying. And the volume of the scream was so loud that it was just shaking everything. It's unbelievable how loud it was. And as it screamed, it was moving. I could tell the direction of the sound was moving. It wasn't staying at the same spot. It would scream, and then it would move, and it would scream again, then it would move, and it would scream again, then it would move. This thing was moving. I'm facing the north side of the road. I'm sitting on the south side of the road, and I'm facing the north side of the road, listening to this thing scream. And I'm in pure terror. I'm sitting on my butt. I'm in pure terror. And as this thing's screaming, it stopped screaming, and I hear footsteps behind me coming from the south side of the road, from where I just came from in the woods. I hear a bipedal crunching, like step, like you can tell it's a person. It's not a four-legged animal. This thing it's heavy, and it's crunching through the woods, and it's walking. Yeah. It's flanking me. It's flanking me from behind. So I turned around, and I'm trying to see, like, I'm pretty frantic. I'm trying to see, like, if I can see the creature. I know it's a creature at this point. I know that there's something going on, and this isn't like an animal. I know that there's something else going on. I instantly knew. But in 1998, we really didn't have the internet, and I wasn't really wasn't too aware of Bigfoot. I knew what Bigfoot was, but it wasn't crossing my mind. When this was going on, that it was not crossing my mind that it's a Bigfoot. I'm thinking monster, you know?
Yeah, no, I understand.
Or I'm thinking a witch, or I'm thinking along them lines.
Like some sort of demon out there.
Witch or something.
Yeah, I hear you, man. It's and I don't mean to cut you off your story. I had something very similar happen to me in Texas. Actually, probably not far from where you're at, where it was screaming. And I know it was screaming because we were there. It was pissed. We were there. It was obvious it was pissed. It was there. But it was hard to kind of tell where it was coming from. Sounded like a demon screaming. Like a female demon screaming through the woods. And I had a hard time nailing down where it was coming from. But I can imagine sitting there, having it directed at you, having those vocalizations come at you, man. I don't blame you for being terrified sitting there. Even with the 7mm, I don't blame you for being terrified.
Yeah, but having the gun wasn't really crossing my mind. I was aware at that point that the gun was sitting next to me on the road, but it was just so loud. It was close. It wasn't very far away. It was obviously pissed that I was there. I want to back up just a second and go back to the year before that in that same location, because I used to hunt on top of this hill. A year before that, I had come across some trees that were about as big around as my leg, and that were broke at the bottom, like they were just pushed over, like something had ran into it or knocked it over. And I thought that was weird when I had seen them. There was a couple that were broken in a directional, like something had run through there or crashed through there. And I knew that whenever I'd seen it, but I'd played it off. I put it out of my mind, like, I really don't know what it was. It could have been, somebody back here with a vehicle or something. Not real sure. So I dismissed that. But as this thing's screaming at me and I hear these footsteps behind me, I'm facing the other way listening to these footsteps. Now I'm facing south now, and the footsteps stop, and it gets really, really quiet, like eerily quiet. I'm not hearing either creature at this point. I turn back. This is the part where the story that I have a hard time with. I turn back to the north side of the road, and this creature had stuck its head through the shrub, through the bushes, through the thicket, had stuck its head through it, and only its head was peering out of the other side of the bushes, looking directly at me, 20 yards away from me. Close. Really close. Yeah, and the sun had set, but there was still light outside. It was that eerie, right before it's dark look in the woods. And I'm sure other hunters that have been in the woods know what I'm talking about, that eerie, like right before it's dark. And it was that. And I'm looking face to face at this thing. I don't remember like what all I said, because the terror that I was experiencing it's almost out of body. You're so terrified. It's surreal. But I was able to know, like I was able to see the feet. I still can close my eyes and see it exactly how it was. And this thing's head wasn't, I wouldn't say like super massive, but it was big. It was like probably twice the size of my head. And it was almost as if this creature had crawled on its hands and knees on the backside of this hill leading to the road, because he wasn't standing. He was on his hands and knees, and his head was only 3 foot high from the ground as he stuck his head through the bushes. And the hair, it wasn't fur, it was hair. The hair was like a brownish, reddish, like most people describe, I've heard before, like a dirty looking brown, orangish red, kind of dark. It was kind of facing every which direction on top of its head. The face wasn't real hairy like I've heard other people describe. What I saw is different from what I've heard a lot of people describe, so I'm not sure exactly what I saw.
Yeah, well, tell us.
This really.
Yeah, that's okay. Tell us what you saw. It's irrelevant what other people say. I'm curious to know what you saw.
The eyes were far apart. They were spread out. They weren't close together. They were far apart. The eyes itself were bigger than I've ever seen. They were black. They were dark as night. They were black. There was no color in them. Solid black. The eye sockets itself were sunk deeper into its face. It was pressed back. It was deeper into its face. Or it had a really heavy brow ridge on the top. Had kind of like more of a mashed in nose. It was wider. The mouth was almost from the side of its head to the other side of its head. It was just all the way across. Had real thin lips, and they were black. The lips itself were just black. His face was battleship gray. It wasn't charcoal gray. His face was a battleship gray. It was very gray, like super gray, and it kind of looked dirty. And I could see details in his face where his cheeks were wrinkled in the side of his head, where it had a lot of texture. The face had a lot of texture to it. He had a big square chin. And as I'm looking at this thing, I don't know if he's like got his eyebrows squinted at me. He's pissed. You can tell this thing it's not happy. I'm not like, I'm basically pleading for my life at this thing, crying for it not to kill me. And I'm looking face to face at it. I'm just screaming, please don't kill me. Along those lines, I don't remember what all was said, but as I'm looking at this thing, and when you're a kid, you take your finger and you put it on between your teeth and your lip, make your lip dry, and you curl your lips under, kind of show your teeth. Yeah, it had did that. He curled his lips up underneath themselves and was showing his teeth at me like he wasn't, but it wasn't a smile. It wasn't like a grin. It's kind of hard to describe. This thing was angry. This thing wanted to come through the bushes and come get me. So I was absolutely in fear for my life that this thing was going to kill me. And we had a face-to-face encounter. And I never reached for my rifle. I'm too afraid at this point, because if he wanted to kill me, he could have killed me. And because time does slow down when you're having an encounter like this, so time would feel a lot more exaggerated. But it felt for like we sit there eye to eye, and I couldn't take. I knew that I wanted to look away, but I couldn't look away from this thing. And next thing I know, I see headlights coming down because we were on top of a hill, and I see the headlights coming up over the top of the hill. I could see the trees starting to light up, and the lights bouncing. The lights bouncing from the dune buggy going down this rough road. So I know it's a vehicle. I know it's my dad coming, and I'm still terrified, but I'm instantly in relief. Like, please hurry, please hurry. And I turned back to look now because I had turned away. I turned back to look at this creature. He pulled his head back through the bushes. I could no longer see his head in the bushes, but I could see the imprint to where his head was just in the bushes. And then I hear him running away, screaming, like not the same scream that he was doing before. This is a different scream now. And he's crashing through the woods, like punching trees and like just making a huge, huge noise as he runs off through the woods. And he was gone. And it was gone quickly. He took off running and screaming, and it was gone. When my father pulled up in the dune buggy, I just jumped in. Like, I just dove in with all the stuff. And I blacked out. I was unconscious. And as soon as I dove in, I was just instantly unconscious. I come to a few minutes later. I don't know exactly how long, and my dad's over me, and he's shaking me, and he's like, kind of freaked out. He's like, what the hell? And I'm just screaming, drive. Just please, just drive. Just go. Just drive. Let's get out of here. Let's go. And so he drives away, and I was sick. I was just so sick, like nauseous, vomiting, just extremely sick after this encounter. We got back to the camp, and I got into my dad's truck, and I closed the doors, and I locked the doors, and I had the windows up, and I told him I am not coming out of this truck till we're home. I'm not coming out. And he didn't try to fight me on it. He didn't, he wasn't. The weird thing now, too, is my dad's passed since, and he didn't try to struggle with it or fight with me not wanting to get out. He just, graciously packed up our camp, put it back, because we had a cab over on the back of the truck where we actually sleep in the truck. In the back part, it was like a little, I'm sure most people know what a cab over is, where you sleep in it. And he packed it up, and we put the dune buggy on, and we drove out of the woods. It was late. We left our camp probably about 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, and we drove straight home. So we got back to town in the early morning, and I was just so sick. For the next couple of days, I was just extremely sick, still nauseous. I couldn't hardly stand up. If I stood up, I felt like I was going to pass out. So I don't know if it was from just the pure fear of what I experienced. I've heard other people say that they send some type of sonar thing, but I'm not exactly convinced on that. I'm still there was so much fear and adrenaline. I think that's what made me sick.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, a lot of things get passed off as infrasound, but I think in situations like this, adrenaline can make you sick, especially if you're sitting there and you're in fear for your life for a long period of time. Your heart's pumping, all your organs are going 110 miles an hour, and then the moment there's relief, a lot of times people will say they're sick. You hear guys in firefights, like in war, talk about that. When everything's said and done, they'll start throwing up. And I think it's because our adrenaline, all of the feelings are just going 110 miles an hour. And your body's not meant to run like that. It's like running a car 120 miles an hour. How long is that car going to really run? After a period of time, it's going to run like crap after you've been driving it as hard as you've been driving it. And I think our bodies are kind of the same way. You know what I mean? That's my opinion. I could be wrong. Could have been infrasound, but...
No, I agree. I agree with that because it's just the body spasms. Like I just felt like so. I slept the whole way back, and I slept for the next day or two, just drained and happy to be home and safe, and to be back in my own bedroom, relieved, super relieved.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like I said, this was in 1998. I was 15 years old when this happened, so. Our hunting season was only like a couple months long, and that's the same time period I got my first job, and first car, that type of stuff. I had a girlfriend at home, so I never wanted to go back to the woods, and they never pressed it upon me. Like, my mom and my brother would still go out to the woods, and it used to terrify me for them, but I was also, like, terrified for my brother more than anything, but I didn't know how to tell him this, which I never have, honestly. Still to this day, I have not told my brother this story. I have not told my mother this story. Before my father passed, he just straight point asked me, when he was not doing so well, and I think he wanted to know, and he asked me what happened that day out there in the woods, and I kind of looked at him and just said, Dad, I thought Bigfoot was going to eat me. And we kind of chuckled about it, and there wasn't a whole lot said about it. And I'm not sure if he knew more than he wanted to say, or if he just wanted to confirm what he thought that I had seen, because it was also weird, like, now that I'm older and I look back on it, that he never really asked any questions that day when we packed up to leave. So I'm not sure if he had a suspicion that I'd seen something like that, but I've tried telling a few people. I've told some friends, and I've had people like, haha, Bigfoot type deal, and I've just never, I've bottled it up for a long time and just try to deal with it and just try to suppress it. And I've just recently, the last couple of years, been able to start looking into, wanting to know more about what I'd seen, but I still have a hard time listening with, like, when you play audio from them screaming in the woods. I still have a hard time with that. I still have a hard time trying to, like, listen to any audio, and I do not want to go back to the woods again. So I definitely have PTSD from this encounter, for sure.
Oh, I can imagine. I'd be a little shocked if you said you didn't have PTSD. I want to back up a little bit because there's a few questions I want to ask you about its appearance, but I wanted to ask you when it popped its head out. So it pops its head out, it looks directly at you and starts showing its teeth. Why do you think it didn't attack you?
I have a couple of different theories why I think it didn't. It was also growling, too. It was making noises. I can't really remember the noises that it was making. I've tried to remember, but it was just the fear. Just seeing this thing, everything just goes away. You just have a complete loss of, like, what's going on, because I really was in fear thinking this thing was going to kill me. I think that the area that I was hunting in was either its territory, or I'd been close to, like, maybe it's young, or maybe this thing had been observing me for a while. I also think there's a possibility that this thing had followed us into our camp, because like I said, we would drive only like 5-10 miles away from our camp to go hunt. And I think it's a possibility that this thing maybe had followed us into our camp, and maybe this thing knew that my dad was serious business, and not to be funny, but like I said, my dad's a very straightforward person, and he was very brave, man. And I think that if he would have been with me during the encounter, he would have been shooting. Even though there was more than one of them, I think that could be a possibility. And he knew that he was coming. My dad was also on his way. He was not very far from me. So if this thing, but he also could have snatched me and dragged me off in the woods before my dad came across on top of that hill, and I've not been seen again. So I don't know. I mean, or maybe
it's hard to say
because I didn't have the rifle in my hands. So there's a couple of different possibilities.
Well, and that's kind of what I was thinking. I was thinking, everyone's a tough guy until you're looking down the barrel of a gun. And maybe because you had that rifle, maybe it came out to give you a what for and decided maybe it's a bad idea attacking this guy. He's got a pretty big gun there next to him. And that's what I think saves a lot of hunters. I think a lot of times when they're armed, I think that these things think twice. I think they'll absolutely come out and vocalize, try and scare you to go away. Sometimes when you hear about Sasquatch's encounters, it makes me wonder in the back of my mind, do they really want to fight? I don't know that so much that they really want to fight. I think it's more intimidation, more go away. And maybe that rifle saved your life that day. It's hard to say. That's my 2 cents. You never know. You know what I mean? Why it wouldn't come out and attack you. You'd think if that would have been a bear, I know you don't really have bears in that. I mean, the biggest problem you really have there where you're at is snakes, hogs, and if you want to get near water, gators. Other than that,
hogs. I've seen hogs out on this area before, and look, I never fired that rifle there. We would go target practice in a place out here by our town, we would go north out into the grasslands. We would go target shooting there, but we never target shot at the hunting grounds. So I never discharged that rifle there ever. Not the 3 years that I was ever going there. So I never shot it. So I also think if this thing was observing me, he never saw me fire this rifle. So either he already knows what rifles are. But the area that we would hunt in was so remote. Like I said, we would see our tire tracks from the year before that. So I mean, I really don't think that this was type 2 public hunting ground, but my dad had picked a spot so remote that there wasn't many people back there, and the woods are very dense back there. You drive a long, long way from civilization. And so people also need to know that Texas has some very remote woods that you could easily get lost in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can get lost in, especially that East Texas area. It's no joke out there, man. You can get lost out there pretty quick. And, when this thing's coming at you and it's popping its head through, it makes me really think of, like when I had Rick on from Canada. He was talking about the bone pile and going into this weird foliage that no one really could get through. All of a sudden there's tunnel systems and it opens up. And I know I had William Sheehan talking about the terror in the Bigfoot, or Bigfoot terror in the woods. He was talking about a bone pile too as well. So it makes me wonder a lot of times along these trails, it pops its head out. What's behind that brush?
It's hard to even say, too, because it's weird how he could stick his head through that thick of brush and it'd just be his head. That was kind of startling. And as I've gotten older and I've been able, because like I said, I've buried this inside me for many years to try to deal with it because of the trauma that I experienced. But I'm a pretty big fan of your show. I like listening to other people's encounters and hear how they've dealt with it. That's one of the main things I listen for, is to see how that person dealt with it. Because I hear a lot of people's stories and they don't seem to be that frightened. Or I also hear the guys that say are researchers that go out looking for this thing, and that terrifies me. That these people will go out in the woods looking for this thing. Like I can't even comprehend that. Like that's serious. That's being pretty brave. That's wild to me.
Yeah, I would agree. And listening to your description, the big mouth. There's been so many encounters to where, I've talked to people and they said, you could put a softball inside this thing's mouth. It would still have room to eat you. The mouth was so big. You hear that a lot. When you were looking at this thing, and you did a great job describing it, but when you looked at this thing, your impression, would you say it was more human or more non-human primate or something completely different?
I honestly, people might not like this, but this thing was not a human. I didn't see human at all. It was a monster. If you look at a gorilla, you don't think human. Even though gorillas have two eyes and a nose and a mouth, but you look at a gorilla and you don't think a human. And when I'm looking at this thing wasn't a human. And it wasn't an ape. It was a monster. This is something that it's hard to describe. I've seen a few pictures like it, but I've never seen a picture on any sketch or anything that's close to what I've seen. As far as the skin texture, the way the face was, the structure of the face, how deep the eyes were sunk into his head with the bulging black eyes. It was an animal. If anything, it was an animal. I don't think it was a person.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, you describe Battleship Gray. You know how many times I've heard that? People have a hard time trying to figure out what color gray it is, but yeah, I think you hit it right on the head, Battleship Gray. I've heard that from other people. I've heard that from military guys. They're like, it's Battleship Gray is their skin color. Kind of that dead skin color.
I think there could be other ones out there, too. I don't think that, this is like only one type. I'm not saying there's not. There very well could be one that looks like a human out there. It's very mysterious that we've never gotten pictures of it, or it puts off a certain feeling when you're around them, when you see them. Like I've heard other people describe the fear, like the dread feeling that's overwhelming. Like when I first heard the first initial loud bang, which started the whole encounter, there was instantly the fear of dread, instantly the feeling of somebody watching me. Just this surreal, like, I can't believe this is happening to me type thing, like And then also, too, trying to figure out just a million things running through your mind at once. Do I run? What do I do? Like, do I try to escape? Is this thing going to chase me? Like, do I stay here? Like, especially when I was at the road and it started screaming at me, I literally did not know what to do. I was just frozen fear, and I did not know what to do.
How big was its head compared to like a normal human-sized head?
Probably like twice the size of a head, like a bigger basketball or like a beach ball, like one of the smaller beach balls. It had a big head, but I don't think this creature was like 10 foot, 12 foot tall or nothing like that. It was big. It was way bigger than me, but I never saw it stand upright. Whenever when I was looking at the lights coming and I turned back to look, he'd pulled us out of the bushes. I don't know if he'd already stood up and run or if he was on his hands and knees and backed out on his hands and knees and then ran, but I never seen this thing run off. I heard him run off. I heard him run off, and you could hear him just crashing through the woods, and like sound like he was like just punching trees, and it was really bizarre. But it was a different scream. It was.
How was it different? And was it more angry, or when you say it was different, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, this scream was more angry. The first scream, it was almost like a communication scream. There was another one behind me. There was obviously at least two. There could have been more than two. There was at least two. Because I heard the other one behind me, and it was almost like him screaming, like, "Hey, he's right over here," like I found him, he's right here, type thing.
Yeah, that's terrifying. Well, I want to ask you about the teeth. Were the teeth white, and can you describe them when he was kind of showing you his teeth? I mean, how would you describe them from what you saw?
Yeah, they were white. His teeth were white. I'm not real sure about the teeth. I did see them, but I'm not. Like I said, I was just so fixated on the eyes, just staring at it. But it didn't have like any like vampire canines or nothing of that nature.
I'm glad you got a chance to. May your father rest in peace. I'm sorry to hear of his passing. I'm glad you were able to get an opportunity to tell him what happened that day.
Yeah, after I told him I haven't, and that was 3.5 years ago. I haven't said anything to anybody else. It's been something I've been wanting to get off my chest. I've tried like hinting and mention this subject with other people just to see how they address the subject. And like I said, I'm from the city, so people aren't very receptive to this type of deal here in the city. It's almost like you're talking about like aliens or ghosts. It's along those lines, which it is. I would consider it in the paranormal subject, but it's a tough subject to try to discuss with like loved ones.
Yeah, it is.
Friends.
It is, and I get it completely.
And it's not necessarily anything I would want my wife to know. It's just one of those type deals that it happened. You deal with it. I wanted to talk to you because I'm willing to share the encounter with other people that have had the encounter, or other people that are interested in the subject. But I don't. Unless people are interested in the subject or want to know, this isn't a subject that I want to just tell somebody.
I understand, and I commend you for coming forward. Thank you so much for sharing it. There's a ton, man. In that area where you're at, I mean, that really is Jurassic Park. I mean, I've been down there. I've been in those areas, and it is freaking Jurassic. I mean, I can tell you an area right now. You can go set up your recorders, just sit in your car, put your recorders on top of the hood of your car, and just let them record. I guarantee you'll get probably some of the best audio you've ever heard. Let me ask you, Jay, what do you think Sasquatch is? I mean, you got to look at this thing. It popped its head out, looked at you. I know it wasn't real friendly, but if someone were to ask you, what is Sasquatch? What would you say to them?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I know that it's not a person. I think maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it comes from somewhere else, or I'm not even sure about it. I don't think that, if anything, it's a wild animal that's extremely smart, or maybe this is something that we're dealing with we just don't know. It's outside the realm of our understanding right now. That's what I think it is. It's just too complicated for us to understand right now. I would like to openly say that, and just put my 2 cents in, that the David Pilates, the Missing 411, I've bought that video. I've done a little bit of research like that. because it scares me for my kids. I wouldn't want my kids to be in the woods. And I personally think that this is something that's going on with people going missing out in the woods. I really do. I have that strong feeling because of how angry the encounter was and how much I felt like it was going to kill me and eat me for some reason. I had that feeling like it wanted to eat me. So I think that this is something it's dangerous. I don't think that this is some like friendly thing that people were trying to like vocalize and talk to it and have it talk back to them. Like, that scares me. There's no way I would want to go in the woods and like bang on trees or scream for this thing.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. And I've said that often too, you know, like when Finding Bigfoot was on the, and I'm not trying to bash Finding Bigfoot, but you know, those guys that bang on trees and do calls. Well, what do you do when one shows up? You know,
right.
I don't see anyone.
There's also weird things that are associated with when people see these, like right before or right after. There's weird things that go into a lot of people's sightings too. So that's puts it in the category of I don't know what it is. It's too hard to say, or just say that it's a wild animal. But I do want to say that I don't think this is a person. I don't think this is any type of like man or person.
No, I tend to agree with you. I tend to agree with you, Jay. I think, you know, a lot of times when people see these things, I mean, they have two arms, they have two legs, they have a head, they have shoulders, and they stand up. They look very man-like when they stand up. So I understand where people are coming from. I tend to agree with you, though. I don't think it's any form of human. It may have broken off from a branch of us from a long time ago, but, you know, I'm not a scientist. I don't know. And you answered one of my questions. I was going to ask you, do you think if it could have got its hands on you, it would have killed you?
Yeah, I do. I do. I had the feeling like it was just pouring over me like a wave of pure dread that this thing wanted to eat me. I do believe that this thing is a killer. It would have, it could have for sure. And it wanted to be that close to me. Like I say 20 yards, but you got to think I'm sitting on one side of the road, and the road has big dips on the side. The road's so bad that you couldn't turn a vehicle around on it. You have to either go one way or back out of it. So I'm sitting on one side of the road, and this thing has had its head through the bushes on the other side of the road. So I mean, I'm close. I'm really, really, really close to this thing. So he wanted me to see it. He definitely wanted me to know he was there. I don't know why he didn't attack me or kill me. I'm thankful he didn't, because I couldn't imagine anything more terrifying than being killed by one of these things.
I hear you. And I'm glad that he didn't attack you either. You know, like you said, man, 20 yards, that's pretty close. You're only talking like 60 feet away, which is almost too damn close in my opinion, to be too close to one of these things. And for him to come out, you know, it's just weird behavior, isn't it? You know, if you're going to attack something, you're going to attack something. Like a hunter, if you're going to shoot something, you're going to shoot something. You're not going to sit and dance with it. And these things like to do that. I don't know if they enjoy sending the fear through you. Thank God your dad drove up, because that seemed to end the whole Mexican standoff at that point. He was out of there at that point.
Yeah,
you know?
that was. I do feel that if my dad would have even like delayed in him getting his climber down, or delayed getting to me, that I do feel that encounter would have went on any longer. You know, that there would have been a finale. It would have finished in some type of way. I do feel that. So I like I said, I jumped in the buggy. I was extremely thankful, and I just blacked out. I just blacked out, and I feel like I might have blacked out more than once during the encounter, because when the thing started screaming at me, it dropped me to my knees, and you know, I can never describe the feeling of thinking you're going to die. It's terrible.
Yeah, it is. It is terrible. And it's a fascinating account. And I know it's, for you, it's a terrifying account. For me, I always look at their behavior in situations like this. And that tells you something right there too about their behavior. You know, if it would have been a black bear, for example, that black bear would have just came at you. If it wanted you, it would have just came towards you. It wouldn't have popped its head out, looked at you, growled. Any normal wildlife isn't going to, you know, it's either I'm going to kill you or I'm going to run. There's really no in between with a lot of wild animals. Although with these things, I think a lot of times in situations like this, they will look at it and calculate. is it worth it going out to get this guy? Can I scare this guy off? If he's not going to run off, okay, what's next? He seems to have a rifle. It seems like there's a lot of calculations going on. And it's not just your encounter, Jay. It's with a lot of people's encounters. You can go listen to Mike Woolley's encounter. It's very similar to yours, except for they did chase him out, and he didn't have someone to come pick him up. But it seems like there's a lot of calculations going on with these things. So for a wild animal, my hat's off to them. They're definitely smarter than your average bear.
There's cases, too, that you're right. There's cases, too, though, like I heard you talk about the guy that went missing when he was camping with his friends and he was drinking and they thought he might have drowned in the small river. There's cases like that, too, where there's no explanation, where there's no possible explanation what could have happened. So I think they do calculate, or like, you know, maybe if you're injured or you're small, or if maybe they just want to eat you. You know, maybe they do feast on people, or maybe they just calculate everything as far as like if they want to eat it or if it was trying to get me out of the area. But like that's what makes me feel more like an animal, not like person, because the feeling of it wanted to kill me or eat me, and I wouldn't relate that feeling or sensation with the person. So that kind of and the physical appearance of it too. Yeah. No, I understand. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Jay. I know you haven't shared it with really your wife or your brother, and the fact that you'd come on here and share it, I'm honored. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks, Wes. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank again MyBookie for sponsoring Sasquatch Chronicles. Join now, and MyBookie will match your deposit dollar for dollar. And thank you to MyBookie for last week for all the additional shows. I appreciate it. I know the fans appreciate it. So when you join MyBookie, use promo code Chronicles to activate the offer. Visit MyBookie online today. That's MyBookie. And don't forget to use the promo code Chronicles when creating your account to claim the bonus. You play, you win, you get paid. And I want to thank MyBookie again. Thank you so much for supporting the show and being a part of the show. I hope the fans go and show you some love. I have Tony Merkel from the Confessionals on. Tony, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Wes. How you doing, man?
Not bad, man. Not bad. It's not to talk about the weather, but the weather sure has changed over here on the West Coast, man. Waking up, it was like 90 degrees every day. Now it's like 50 and rain. It's kind of a nice change. It's good to talk with you, though. And I know you're not so cocky now, you know, after all of your bets. I don't think one of them, I think every game lost that you said was going to win. So I thought I'd bring...
You haven't given me a chance to get cocky yet.
Well, give us your picks this week. I know you got 3 games lined out. Give us your picks so the audience can do the complete opposite of whatever you're betting.
Well, here's my 3 hot takes of the week. First of all, we're going to start off with tradition here. Cleveland versus Oakland. Okay, now I think that I did call the Jets game, didn't I? That's right, I did. And if anybody bet on that game, you made some money. No problem. You're welcome. So this week with the Browns, and I'm not even a Browns fan. I just really think that they're on an uptick, and they're going to continue this uptick, especially with Mr. Baker in there. Okay, he's going to be cooking some brownies. And so here we go. This week, Cleveland and Oakland. Cleveland is going to win this game outright. Okay, so we got Cleveland, Oakland, Cleveland. Pick Cleveland. Book it. Telling you right now. Now that's not my ice cold hard lock of the week. But before we get to that, I want to tell people about yours truly, Wes, Kansas City and Denver. We got Kansas City and Denver playing on Monday Night Football. All the nation is going to be looking at this team. And, Wes, I got news from you. I got some good news for you, Wes. Well, you might actually think this is bad news. Kansas City is going to rock the house in Denver on Monday Night Football, national TV. They're going to go 4-0. You can book that as well, my friends, at MyBookie. And so, before we get going here on my ice-cold hard lock of the week, Wes, I want to ask you, what do you think about my Kansas City pick, my friend?
I like it. I tend to agree. I honestly think they're going to win. Later in the season, though, Denver does turn it up, so we'll give them that. But I tend to agree.
Okay. Well, I thought you would be upset that I picked them because you want to say that I picked the opposite. So, but hey, Kansas City, book it. And so my ice-cold hard lock of the week is my team, my beautiful, lovely team, caw, the Eagles. I know Eagles don't make the caw sound, but I don't care. Eagles. Eagles are going to rock the Tennessee Titans today at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can book that in as a hard lock of the week. You can bet the house on it. You're going to make some serious cash on this game. So go ahead and pick the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the Tennessee Titans today at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Head to mybookie.com and get your bets flowing.
Who are you? That was good. There's Tony's hot picture of the week. Thanks, Tony. And I know on Tuesday, if you listen to the confessionals, Tuesday, Tony's going to be releasing a really cool show. A gentleman who, it's one of these shows where you almost have to hear the whole story. There's time travel, there's abduction. It's probably one of the more fascinating stories I've ever heard in my life. So if you get a chance, Tony, you're going to release that on Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That would be midnight on Pacific Time. And we have Tony Rodriguez coming on, and Tony has a phenomenal story. I spent about 2 hours with him talking to him about his experiences. Now, he was abducted, and it was a 20-year process, and it involves time travel, it involves ETs, it involves government, it involves a lot of different stuff. It's very, very layered. So I highly encourage people to check that out. And Wes, I think I sent you a clip, didn't I, of that interview, a little bit of an introduction so people could hear it. If you want, you could play that now.
All right, let's take a listen.
Well, in fourth grade, I was picked for a advanced learning class in my school, Talented and Gifted, the TAG program. And we met on Wednesdays, in the library of the school for a couple hours, an hour and a half or so, I forget. But in that class, there was a boy. At that point in my life, I was something I could be proud of as being a smart kid. Classified for that, it gave me something to be proud of. So there was a kid in that class that came to school in a limousine and was pretty cocky, and he was extremely smart. And I was threatened by him. And one day I went into the library, and we were early. I was early to class, and it was him and maybe 3 or 4 other girls sitting on the couch in the library. And they were all laughing. I walked up, and they were like, one of the girls said, "He can read your mind. Do him. And he didn't want to. He just looked at me, and I thought, you can't do that. And I thought to myself, that's not possible, And she said, no, do him. He said, go ahead and think something, but don't say it. And I looked at him, and I thought to myself, you're the ugliest kid I've ever seen, and none of these girls would ever date you. That's what I thought to him. I mean, we were 10-year-old kids. And he looked at me like he knew. I didn't believe he was going to know. But ever after that, at that moment, he looked at me with just disgust in his face. He didn't say anything, and he never liked me after that. I couldn't get a hello. He hated my guts. And later on that year during the science fair, his dad came and was a judge for the science fair. And, he said in one day, he said, my dad's an Illuminati. What's your dad do? And I had no idea what that was. I said, my dad works at GM. My dad's got a great job. My dad's super, super awesome, which my dad did have a great job. But I didn't know what that meant, but it stuck out in my head, as something. And he meant it in an insulting way. But when his dad came up later, I walked by, we're setting up our exhibits in the cafeteria for the science fair, and I walked by him and his father, and he said, Dad, that's that boy I told you about that ruined my confidence. And then they had an exchange of words that I didn't understand what they were talking about. That didn't make any sense to me. And then I heard him say, well, he doesn't really deserve that. And then his dad said, well, you just have to learn how to handle, he said something to the effect of, you need to learn how to manage your resources. And I just walked off. I didn't think of it. And it was later that night, or it was within a day or two. It was very soon that I woke up in the middle of the night with your standard gray ET standing over my bed with his face maybe a few inches from mine. I originally thought it was my dad joking around. I said, Dad, knock it off, take off the mask. And I reached up and touched it. And, right on his cheek. And it was cold and wet and porous. It was it was porous. Like there was like a window screen kind of porous, And I went, eek! You know, I freaked out, and before I could scream, I was frozen, and I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, and I saw at the foot of my bed 2 shorter reptilian-looking beings with hoods on, with kind of a hoods, and they came around and grabbed me and carried me back to the foot of my bed. And there was I thought it felt like we went out the window, but I don't think so. Looking back on it, there was a flash of light, and I ended up in a laboratory somewhere.
Yeah, I guess be careful who you bully. I mean, you got to hear the whole story. I'm telling you, for the audience, I've already heard the show twice, and I'm going to listen to it again on Tuesday. Go and check out the Confessionals podcast, confessionalspodcast.com. You definitely want to hear Tony Rodriguez's story. Tony Merkel, thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for giving us your picks.
Absolutely, and I hope everybody makes a lot of money at mybookie.ag this week.
Thanks, Tony. And check out Tony Merkel. He's the confessionalspodcast.com. If you're on iTunes, definitely check out the Confessionals. Thank you again, Tony. Next up on the show, let's welcome Francis. Francis, thanks for coming on.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here. And I know you had 2 encounters out there in California. Now, this is back in the 70s. If you would you kind of start from the beginning? Walk us into what happened. What were you guys out doing, and what did you see? What did you experience?
Okay, well, it was my ex-husband and his friend, and we lived in Anaheim, California, and we decided to take a week and go up to Yosemite and go to Mammoth and June Lake, Virginia Lakes, and all that type of thing. So we drove up to Yosemite, and then we went through the valley, and then we were on 120, and Tenaya Lake is on 120. So we got all our stuff out. We parked. It was a little bit of a hike, and we went to the camping spot close to the lake, set up our things, or gear and everything, and then we had to go across 120 to get firewood. So we went across 120, and it's probably late in the afternoon, but not dusk or anything, just later in the afternoon. So we're getting wood, and my husband decides he's going to go climb up on some granite rocks. And we could hear him. I thought he was getting wood, and then I could see him in the distance. I mean, and I'm like, what the heck? So I said, no, I yelled, I think you need to get down from there and come and help us so we can start a fire. So he laughed, thought it was funny. He got down, he came, we started getting wood, and then we started hearing something, cracking sounds, crackling, like when somebody's making noise, there's something out there behind us, like in these dense bushes and there's trees. At the same time, the hairs stood up on the back of my neck. And I don't know if it did for them, but probably did, because we had wood, and we threw the wood up in the air and let it drop, and then we ran all the way back to our camp space. And then when we got there, we're thinking, now we don't have any wood. So we got what we could find around there, which was already picked over from, I guess, a lot of people, camping in that area. So we started a fire, and it kind of burned out about 10 o'clock. We ate something, and then we got in the tent, and it was pretty cold. It was in September. And we're laying there and can't go to sleep because it's freezing. And then there was no sounds of animals or any little creatures or anything. And I said, do you notice that there's no sounds out there? And they go, yeah. And then we heard this ungodly roar, like a lion. It was close, though, because it wasn't like some of the vocalizations I've heard that people have taped that are off. They seem like they're a little bit off in the distance. Oh, no, this was right close by. And it just lasted. It seemed to me like it lasted forever. It started with this low roar, and then it went way up into almost a high-pitched scream. And then when it was done, we couldn't move. I was shaking right now, too, my stomach is. I was shaking, and my stomach was in a knot, and I felt like I was going to have an accident. But I was young, so I held all that in, and I just couldn't stop shaking, and feeling sick. I felt kind of sick. And so we just stayed there for, I don't know how long we were there. I don't think it was more than 10, 15 minutes. And then we heard voices, people's voices. And then we thought, well, maybe we should get out of the tent and see who that is. Because we knew it was people, you know. We see people with flashlights coming around from the granite face. The lake is on a granite face, almost like a half dome, but not quite that high. They were coming around, and when they got to where we were, they said, "Did you see it? It ran right in front of your tent, right by your tent," or something. And they must have been down when they turned, coming from where they were staying. It ran, I guess, and they saw it just, run our direction and was gone. And so we were like, "What? Did we see what?" And then we're like, "Ew, what is that? Smells like a wet dog smell." And then we just thought, well, it's just wet dog smell out here. And they left. Now, this is ridiculous. We had no knives. We had no guns, no weapons. And I don't even think we had a flashlight. I don't remember. But I do remember getting back in the tent and just laying there, like, just terrified until the sun came up. And then when we saw the sun coming up, we got everything, packed it up, put it, took it to the vehicle, and then went home instead of going to the other places. And it was terrifying.
Yeah, I can imagine. Especially, you can pass off a roar, but when a roar goes into a scream, that doesn't really add up to any known animals out there. Did the people coming down, did they say, was it on 2 legs? Was it on 4 legs? Or was it just...
They didn't say, they didn't say anything, whether it was on 2 or 4. We should have thought to ask them, what did it look like, But they just said, "Did you see it?" And I'm like, "It? Okay." We did a lot of camping for many years. I've heard, mountain lions, even rabbits scream when they're scared, and all these different animals that California has, bears and all that. That was not a normal sound. That was not an animal that I just knew it wasn't a normal thing.
Yeah, and this is back in the 70s too, so I mean, there's no finding Bigfoot, there's no, it's probably more or less just what in the world was that?
Yes, and I did call the forest rangers, the forestry, and I asked them, "Am I crazy or is something, what is, And they says, "Oh, we're keeping records of all of these people that have had the same similar situation." I said, "Are you kidding?" She goes, "No, it was a woman." And she believed me, and that was the last of that, and I never saw it anywhere or, read it anywhere. But obviously you weren't the only ones who's had that happen. So,
yeah, and I can kind of understand what you did too. It's, what are you supposed to do? It's the middle of the night. Get out, pack everything up, and leave. I mean,
felt like it.
Well, yeah, I bet that's what you wish. But you know what I mean? Like, a lot of times when you're in that situation, it's like, well, what do you, especially when you don't know what it is. And at that time, I could see why you guys would stay there. Tell me about your second encounter, because I thought this was pretty fascinating.
Okay. I never really went camping anymore. I even didn't like going up to Lake Tahoe. Sometimes we go up to Lake Tahoe. Oh, I moved to Sacramento in 79, Sacramento, California. So sometimes we'd go up to Lake Tahoe, and, and then when we were coming back at night, I just felt, I don't know, it was a lot of forest. So I don't know. We had friends up there. So living in Sacramento, it's a city, and there's not the only place that really has a forest are the parks and the Sierras. So a bunch of friends, they usually go every year to a campground called Wildcat. It's on the coast, Point Reyes, north of San Francisco. And I had no idea. It was like a 6-mile 6-mile hike there, and of course 6-mile hike back. And we went in the middle of the night. Now, I don't know why they wanted to do that. There was about 25 of us, quite a few people. So I thought, oh, that would be fun. There's no weird things there. I mean, other than just the regular things. So we're kind of going around Mount Tamalpais in our cars and trucks. And I was with my friend and another friend. He was driving, and she was sitting in the front. I was in the back. So I was looking up through the skylight, through the sunroof. And not skylight, sunroof. And then I see something really dark and big to my right, standing on an angle like 10 feet down, where it's impossible for a human to stand without falling on their head or going down to the road and killing themselves or something. So this happened really fast. I look up there. I'm thinking, what the heck? Somebody's standing up there, and heaves a rock about as big as a grapefruit. And it hit the top of the car, made a dent, and it barely missed the glass. Now, if it hit the glass, that would be where I'm sitting. I don't know what would have happened. And we just were like, well, what the heck was that? And I think, looking back, it had to be another one of those creatures. It couldn't have been a human. And why in the middle of the night, like 12:30 at night, standing up there waiting for nobody to go by, because normally people aren't driving around up there that late. I just never, ever go out to the woods. I'm afraid of it. I'm terrified of it. It's destroyed my life as far as the beauty of camping and trees and all that kind of thing. So I just stick to other things.
Yeah, I hear you. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
You're right. That's very bizarre. You're in the middle of freaking nowhere. And you're probably right. I mean, hardly anyone drives on that road who's going to be standing out there with a bowling ball size boulder to hit a car with when it goes by. It probably was one of these things. That's fascinating. What did everyone think?
I think Phil, nobody, I don't know if the other ones saw it because they kept going. And Phil, this guy was driving, and then when we got down to Palomarinas, where you park cars and trucks, he looked at that and went, oh, man, what was that? I said, I don't know, somebody or something standing on the side. I don't know what angle that would be. Would that be 45 degree, almost straight up and down, just barely having a foot, a place to put your feet? I don't know. And so I just put it out of my mind because we were there to have fun, and I always thought about it until, and then I started thinking about it more, especially since I started looking up people that believe the way we do or have had an experience and don't think you're crazy or laugh. And I realized there's a lot of people out there that have had similar experience that I have. And so I don't feel so, crazy.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's and you hear that with a lot of people. Whenever something happens to you, I think as human beings, we have the mindset of, well, this only happened to me. But you're right. In reality, with Sasquatch, there's a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people who've had encounters. My tiny little show, look how many people have come on, and that's barely even, not even scratching the surface as far as encounters go. Fascinating stuff. I don't blame you for not wanting to go in the woods anymore.
And I just started listening to your podcast, and I think it's amazing.
I appreciate that. Very much. I wanted to ask you, Frances, what do you think Sasquatch is? What's your honest opinion? If someone were to ask you, what do you think Sasquatch is, what would you say to them?
I would say it's a really dangerous creature that's really smarter than intelligent, that people don't realize how intelligent they are. And they've been able to, dodge people finding them. And I've heard that you can't find a body. Well, they probably bury their bodies. One of their, family members dies or friend, because people do. I just think it's I don't think it's something to be trifled with. And when I think about people looking for them, I'm like, you're looking for them because you have not had that feeling in your body that felt like I think I'm gonna die. I don't know what it's from, but I think it's gonna kill me. I just don't know how people have the how they could do it. Go out looking for those creatures. And I'm so glad I didn't see it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it is nice not to see it, but sometimes you always have that back in your mind where, and I'm sure you've gone through this, where you think, God, I wish I would have saw it. But I know what you mean. It's kind of like ignorance is bliss. Thank God I didn't see it. Fascinating accounts. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing them.
Oh, I'm glad I could do it. I hope it, other people are interested also. And thank you for letting me come on because it makes me feel validated, if that's what you could say. But yeah, I'm glad I finally really told somebody that really gets it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Yes. Well, thank you.
And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Don't forget to check out sasquatchchronicles.com. Until next time, everyone.
My wheels on tone.